the special honor to welcome Dr. Sampadananda Mishra, the director of the Sri Aurobindo Foundation for Indian Culture. Dr. Mishra is passionate about Sanskrit, and his work in this field is second to none. He strongly believes that Sanskrit has immense potentiality to elevate the human consciousness to sublime heights. Dr. Mishra holds a postgraduate degree in Sanskrit from Utkal University in Bhubaneswar, a master's in philosophy in Sanskrit from Pondicherry Central University, where he received the gold medal for his excellent performance, and a PhD from Utkal University on Sanskrit and the evolution of human speech. Among his numerous books are The Wonder That Is Sanskrit, The Evolution of Human Speech, Sri Aurobindo in Sanskrit, and Hasya Manjari, a book of humorous stories in Sanskrit. He has also produced audio CDs and multimedia CD-ROMs, such as Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the Light of Sri Aurobindo, a multimedia presentation containing 2,500 pages of research on the Gita. Devabhasha, the language of the gods, a multimedia CD-ROM. Ashtavadanam, or eightfold concentration, a multimedia CD-ROM, Sri Aurobindo Upanishad, with the recitation of Sri Aurobindo Upanishad and Shama Smaranam, an audio CD containing hymns to Krishna. Dr. Mishra is currently working on a number of projects, including Root Sounds of Sanskrit, Vedic Art of Multiple Concentration, and Sanskrit and Speech Pathology. The Government of India has conferred the President's Award 2011 on Dr. Mishra for his outstanding contribution to Sanskrit. Dr. Mishra, we look forward to this series with you, and thank you for agreeing to share your deep knowledge and love of Sanskrit with the world through our website, motherinsriaurobindo.org. I would like to begin this first interview with some questions, especially about your experience with Sanskrit. Sanskrit has been called a dead, difficult, or even a Hindu language. Could you speak about this?
Namaste.
Namaste.
I was very much fascinated towards this language from my childhood. It gave me always joy, clarity in expression, peace, and it helped me a lot in the growth of my consciousness. This is how I developed a keen relationship with the Sanskrit language. Although there are these notions that Sanskrit is a dead language, a Hindu language, a very difficult language to understand or learn, but to me it has opened a lot of doors, and it has given me many riches. And it has given me a different type of understanding of life, of myself, of the world. Coming back to the first question, is Sanskrit a dead language? Of course not. Sanskrit, in fact, is a very alive language. It even makes dead alive. It is in this sense that Sanskrit has immense potentiality to add richness to our own life. And I would like to comment a little on the word dead. In English language also, dead has different connotations. And when we say dead language, what exactly we understand by this expression? In English, suppose we say it's a dead body. It has a different connotation. And when we say my telephone is dead, it has a different shade of meaning. We also use the word dead adverbially in the expressions like, oh, he is walking dead slow. It's a dead letter. And there are several examples where dead is used and has different shades of meaning. And what exactly we mean by dead language, most of the times people understand it as we understand by dead body or some non-existent language. This is not true. When we say my telephone is dead, we don't mean my telephone does not exist, like in the case of dead body. It is not functioning, and with a little bit of repairing it may start working. So in the same way, dead language in philology refers to the language which is not much in its spoken form. And the actual problem happened when the dead language was translated into Mrita Bhasha in Sanskrit and in other Indian languages. There is a problem in this translation. So if you translate dead language into Mrita Bhasha, then you land up with the problem of understanding dead in the sense of non-existent. It's not Mrita, it's Alpa Prachalita, or less spoken, less in use. So it is called dead language. So this is one understanding about the dead language. The other thing is that we call a language dead when actually it doesn't exist. And if we look at certain other languages, say for example Sangam Tamil, we don't call Sangam Tamil a dead language. We don't call even Tulsidas language as a dead language or dead Hindi. They are very much alive, but they exist in a different level. They exist in a different manner. Hebrew, for example, was a dead language for a long time. It was merely a language of scripture or language of prayers. But the people of Israel made it very much alive after it got independence. And in India, we lacked that spirit. We could not make Sanskrit as a language of our day-to-day life. We need to learn and imbibe that spirit to make it a lively language or language of day-to-day life.
So is it difficult? A difficult language?
It's, in a sense, a difficult language because of its complexities of grammar, because of the difficulties of its hardcore grammar. At the same time, because of its richness, it can be made simple. There is a simplicity lies hidden within the language itself, and we need to discover that. Any language is difficult. Can anyone learn English without any difficulty? Can anyone learn Chinese without any difficulty? Can anyone learn Japanese or Hebrew or any other language without any difficulty? And compared to the difficulties that we find in other languages, Sanskrit has less difficulties. There are many ways of entering into the very spirit of this language, which is absolutely simple. And that simplicity has immense power to arouse a different kind of life in us, to awaken us and to make us aware of the true aim of life, the true aim of why we are here, and to arouse and awaken us the source of our being, our existence on this earth. This is what I believe, and this is what the language has taught me.
What about when they say it's a Hindu language? I don't quite understand that.
People call it a Hindu language, and there has been a kind of propaganda about it. Then these questions come: can we call Himalaya the Hindu mountain because it is worshipped by the Hindus? Can we call Ganga as a Hindu river because it is worshipped and given respect by the Hindus? Can any language be associated with any particular religion? Can you call Urdu a Muslim or Islam language? So in the same way, we cannot brand Sanskrit as the Hindu language. There are religious scriptures which are available in this language which Hindus use, but that should not be the reason to call Sanskrit as a Hindu language. And what is known to people about Sanskrit is that Sanskrit has got some religious languages, religious materials, religious scriptures, or scriptures of philosophy, or some spiritual scriptures. But that's just one aspect of this language. It has contributed in every field of knowledge, every branch of knowledge. If you look at the amount of scientific literature which is available in Sanskrit, speak of chemistry, physics, geology, geometry, metallurgy, politics, economics, geography, and the list is endless. So what about these scientific scriptures? Can anyone call Hindu chemistry as a Hindu? Physics as Hindu? So this is a language which has given expression to various branches of knowledge, various ideas, innumerable concepts. And the ancient Indian people who used this language as a tool to give expression to their own ideas, they have gone very much deep into every aspect of the knowledge system, whether they have contributed towards chemistry or physics or geology or metallurgy or any other scientific literature or scientific knowledge. So they have gone very deep into it. And especially I am in love with Ayurveda. We can't call Ayurveda as a Hindu system of medicine. It's for all, it's for the entire humanity. It's a language which is not Hindu, which is not Islamic language, which does not belong to any community. Even there are many Muslim scholars who have contributed a lot towards Sanskrit. There were Muslim rulers who have patronized Sanskrit Pandits, under whose patronage the Sanskrit scholars have written books and have contributed immense knowledge on different topics. And at present also there are many Muslim scholars who are studying Sanskrit, trying to understand the Gita, trying to understand, make comparative studies between Gita and Quran, and trying to understand the Vedas, the Upanishads. So it is just because some of the Hindu scriptures are available in Sanskrit, that should not be the reason to call it a Hindu language.
When you were in the US and gave your wonderful talks there at the Sri Aurobindo Integral Yoga Retreat in South Carolina. We spoke a bit about Sanskrit, and I asked you if it was a musical language. And what about meter and prosody? Could you say something on this?
This is a very important aspect of Sanskrit language, especially. The language, and it's in fact the musicality of this language, the melody, the rhythmic aspect of this language which has drawn me very close to its own soul or spirit. In fact, it's a very musical language. And anyone who consciously uses this language or comes in contact with this language feels the music in it. And as music appeals to the heart, keeps refining the heart or the emotions emerging from the heart, this very language does, like the music, it appeals to the heart. At the same time, it's also very logical and mathematical. Like mathematics, it helps the brain. It helps in the development of the brain, and like music, it appeals to the heart. And more than music and melody, the purity of the vibration of its sounds and the purity of the rhythm that is an integral part of the structure of this language is very important, and it helps in several ways in the growth of consciousness, in refining our emotions, in bringing clarity and joy and peace and silence into our mind. Coming to the chandas, Sanskrit is perhaps the only language which is full of chandas. The very language is chandas. So the word chandas refer to meter or prosody. And when I look at the chandas or the metrical aspect of this language, I really do not get confined into the physical form of the poetry, what is meant by the meter usually. So meter usually means the physical framework in which a poetry is composed, a poem is composed. That like if we speak about Sanskrit meter, how the syllables are arranged in a line, in a metrical line, how the syllables are regulated by which element, by the number, by the arrangement, by the places of pauses that one has to take, sometimes the accentuation. So these are the physical aspects. But more than the physical aspects of the meters or the poetry, there is something very beautiful. The chandas are not actually confined to poetry alone. Chandas are universal. Chandas refer to a kind of harmoniously rhythmic movement. And it is in fact that the entire creation, this has been the insight, this has been the understanding of the ancient Indian seers or seer poets, that the chandas, the very creation is the outcome of these chandas. And everything in this creation is held and regulated by the chandas, by this universal rhythmic movement. And when this universal rhythmic movement is captured in the language, it turns the language into a poetic form, and you get poetry. That's the difference between prose and poetry. And it does not mean that prose does not have the chandas. Prose also has the chandas, but the poetic chandas are more powerful than the chandas that is there in the prose. And when the same rhythmic movement is captured in dance, it takes a different turn. Can you think of music without chandas? Can you think of sculpture without chandas? Everywhere if things are beautiful, if things are appealing, then it is because of the chandas in that. And Sanskrit has innumerable chandas. In fact, it's infinite. The way chandas are described in the Chanda Shastras, treatises dealing with the meters or prosody, it's innumerable, it's infinite. But there are certain chandas which are recognized as chandas or proper meters in which the poets of Sanskrit have composed their poetry, their poems, and have contributed towards giving expression to their own ideas and experiences and feelings. In fact, Sanskrit is such a musical and rhythmic language that 99% literature available in Sanskrit is in poetry form.
Oh.
Even mathematics is written in poetry. Dictionaries are written in poetry. Poetry is the very soul, music, the rhythm, the melody is the very soul of this language.
Do other languages have a number of Sanskrit roots?
In other languages, if we look at especially the Indian languages, yes, most of the regional languages in India, they are derived from this language and contain maximum number of root sounds which are available in Sanskrit. And we can have hundreds and thousands of examples from the regional languages of India. And if we include languages belonging to countries other than India, say English or French or Arabic languages or Chinese or Japanese, we need to understand what exactly is meant by the root sounds and how these root sounds appear in other languages. The Sanskrit which is available to us today in the form of Vedic Sanskrit or classical Sanskrit is not the original language from which all languages have come or derived. Sri Aurobindo, while speaking about this aspect, refers to a source language, and he calls this source language as Deva Bhasha, and he states that it is from this Deva Bhasha that all languages have come. And it is this original Deva Bhasha which contained the root sounds of all the languages. And Sanskrit, in its Vedic and classical form, is very close to this original language and has preserved maximum force, spirit, flavor and root sounds of that original language called Deva Bhasha. Not only the root sounds, but the structure, the primitive nature of that language is contained, very much contained in the Vedic language, in the classical Sanskrit language. Let me give you some examples. Say in Sanskrit, there is a root sound, stha, S-T-H-A, stha, and from which you get lot of derivatives like sthana, which refers to a place, sthanu, which refers to a pillar, pratishtha means foundation, sthapana means keeping, putting, sanstha, any organization or institution is called sanstha. Astha means the trust that we carry within us is astha. So if you look at all the words derived from this root sound and look closely to the different meanings of all these words, you can reduce all the meanings into certain fundamental experiences. And these fundamental experiences related to stha are the original meaning, root meaning, or the root idea associated with the root sound stha is a kind of a state where things are immobile, doesn't move. So immobility is the original idea of the root sound stha. And then look closely and try to investigate and try to experience, where does this idea of immobility lead to? Say for example, something which does not move also refers to strength. Sometimes we say that, oh, he is so strong that I can't move him. So the idea of strength is related to the idea of immobility. And sometimes we say that, oh, he is so strong and he is so immovable that he is also rigid. So it also somehow related to rigidity, obstinacy. We say that, oh, he is so obstinate that I can't move him. It's too rigid. So the idea of immobility, strength, obstinacy, so all these are related ideas. One idea leading to another idea. And now, if you say pick up any word in English containing the sound ST, either in the beginning of the word or in the middle or at the end, then you can see these original experiences associated with the root stha. Say for example, station, stagnant, stop, start, steward, still, steal, exist, establishment, obstinacy. So all these root ideas which we find, which are associated with the root sound stha, are found in other languages also. And it can be, someone can verify it taking examples from other languages, but I'm sure that it makes sense and it has some kind of connection with the root sound. That is why it is most important while comparing the languages. The first thing a philologist should do, or whoever is making an investigation to find out the history of languages, the first task is to find out the root sounds and find out what are the fundamental experiences associated with it. And then one can see that how beautifully all the languages of the world, they are related with each other. The research should not be based on the formed words, but on the root sounds.
So the word stand or standing or stationary would all have that shta in them. I would like you to perhaps recite some Sanskrit slokas for us and their translation. It would be wonderful to hear you speak Sanskrit in this first video of many to come.
Okay. There's a beautiful verse composed by Bhartrhari. Bhartrhari was a philosopher, a grammarian, and a wonderful poet. And Sri Aurobindo had a lot of admiration for Bhartrhari. So he has written few centuries of verses, and one of his poems is known as Niti Shatakam. And this Niti Shatakam was entirely translated into English by Sri Aurobindo. And he did a wonderful poetic translation of 126 verses of Bhartrhari's Niti Shatakam. So I'll recite one of the verses from Niti Shatakam which I like the most. So I'll recite a verse from the Niti Shatakam of Bhartrihari. Keyurani na bhushayanti purusham hara na chandrojvala na snanam na vilepanam na kusumam na lankrita murdhaja vanyeka samalankaroti purusham ya sanskrita dharyate kshiyante khalu bhushanani satatam vagbhushanam bhushanam. And this particular verse has been rendered into English by Sri Aurobindo. So instead of giving my own translation, I would like to read out or recite what Sri Aurobindo has written about this verse, or how he has rendered into a poetic form in English. It's not armlets that adorn a man, nor necklaces all crammed with moon-bright pearls, nor baths, nor ointments, nor arranged curls. It's art of excellent speech that only can adorn him. Jewels perish, garlands fade. This only abides and glitters undecayed.
Very beautiful. Perhaps you could tell us what would be the value of learning Sanskrit in today's world?
Well, I feel the most practical value of learning Sanskrit lies in the way it allows the mind to think logically, the way it helps us in bringing clarity in expression, in enhancing the inner faculties like concentration, memory, observation, imagination, creativity, and I have a feeling that a conscious use of this language can even bring up many unknown and hidden faculties within the human consciousness. More than a language, I consider it as a force, as something that has to do with the growth of our consciousness. It has immense potentiality because of its scientific nature, because of the purity of the vibration of its sounds, because of the rhythmic aspect, the musicality of it, because of the strength that the very language has, that it helps us immensely in the growth of our consciousness. At physical level, it brings healing. It keeps refining our emotions and it adds clarity into the mental level of consciousness, and it gives us keen insight into the meanings of the words. And in Sanskrit, I've never seen it in any other language, that the sound and the sense are inseparable. There's an eternal relationship between sound and sense. The meanings of a word are not attached to the word by convention. It is not that the sound has absorbed meaning through context or culture or by convention, but rather the meaning and the sound they have come out of the depth of the experience or the feeling or the emotion, and they are eternally related with each other. And you can pick up any Sanskrit word, go to the root sound, the different components of the word, and then you can feel that the sound and sense are so inseparable from each other, and each and every word in Sanskrit is conscious of its own history, and that gives a lots of clarity into the understanding of the language, understanding of the scriptures. And more than that, what I have experienced personally by using this language consciously is that it makes us aware of the very aim of our life, the very truth of what is there within and without. And it's a language of awareness, and Sri Aurobindo calls this as a language of yoga, that it connects you something higher than your own existence and helps you to move from one level of existence to the other level of existence and further higher levels of existence. And using this language, even in today's time, can be of a great help in developing the inner faculties, the instruments with which we are working towards everything or our growth, and which is actually is the true aim of education. And I feel the Sanskrit can become a powerful tool in achieving the true aim of education and yoga.
We'll end today's videotaping with a remembrance of what you told me the other day about reading a book of stories to your daughter. It was so beautiful. I would like you to share about the man who wrote them and your experience.
It was, say, 2 days before, I was reading a storybook written by Swami Sampadananda Mishra. The book is titled as Stories for Meditation and contains many beautiful, inspiring stories which really are very touching. And I was reading one story and narrating the story to my daughter, and then on the back page of that book has Swami Sampadananda Mishra's photograph. And my daughter was looking at the photograph and pointing that whether this Swamiji is alive or where is he, but no information is given in the book. So I couldn't give any information to my daughter. Next morning, when I was coming out of the ashram, then I found someone or Swamiji who is coming out of the car and heading towards the ashram. And when I turned and looked closely, it was none other than Swami Sampadananda Mishra. Then I went near him to give my respect to him, and then we had a little conversation, and I felt that my day was a good day, and I felt happy about it.
I think I remember you told me something else, and that wasn't that you spoke to one of his disciples about what does he teach?
Yeah.
That was really something for me.
Then he was followed by a group of young people, and one of them I asked what exactly he teaches you all. And he says nothing. He tells us stories, and he has brought us here in the ashram so then we can meditate in his presence and we can contemplate and feel the presence of this place and the presence of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. And that is why we are here in this morning today.
Thank you, Dr. Mishra. And may I call you Sampad?
Yes, sure.
Thank you. Next in our series is the most important subject: how Sanskrit can be taught to Indian children. Thank you.